Welcome to Talk to Brazil with Tom Reaoch, the business connector to business in Brazil. Talk to Brazil is a leading business podcast, talks with business experts throughout the world. I'm Tom Reaoch, an American known as the King of Networking, connecting people from my studio in Brazil. My friend and business networking partner, Khudania Ajay, joins us from New Delhi, India. Ajay is podcast host of the global podcast show, the KAJ Masterclass Live. Today's special chat talking about business opportunities, India and Brazil.
Very special series on India and Brazil on the KAJ Masterclass Live every fortnight, along with my esteemed friend and podcast host, Tom Reaoch. We explore together our nation's journeys in business, culture, and politics and podcasting as we strive to find our rightful place in the global arena. And as you can see, we are joined by our friend from Campinas, Brazil, is Tom Reaoch, who has spent his whole life there, an American known as the King of Networking, with a wealth of experience in market development and product management across diverse businesses. Tom is the founder and host of 3 business podcasts, a public speaker and author. His deep expertise and extensive network will provide invaluable insights into Brazil's dynamic landscape. And last time, he provided a lot of insights into the podcasting industry, how Brazil is taking its rightful place in the global broadcasting positioning and industry. And this time, we'll be talking about business opportunities between India and Brazil. Welcome to the show once again, Tom, and I leave it to you to now talk to the audience on about what we'll be talking today.
Well, today again, AJ, thanks for having me. Thanks for inspiring me and us to create this, which again is a unique experience of 2 podcast hosts creating a third opportunity of speaking about opportunities between India and Brazil. And as we talked about, even in podcasting, you two are a reference for podcasting. You have an energy, all right, a creative energy that's admirable. And that's one of the things that attracted me to you, is the dynamic approach that you give to sharing knowledge. And we both know that. You in India, here in Brazil, there are opportunities. We feel those, we see those. But we also know that there's a larger world out there, and there are many people who don't know about these opportunities. So this, to our audience, is a platform to share with us and help us share with you the opportunities, those things that we see as business opportunities, not only between India and Brazil, but for any country, any company, any investor outside of either in India or Brazil. They can see the similarities between the 2 countries. We can also see the challenges between India and Brazil. So there is opportunity for anybody in the world wanting to do business either in India and Brazil. And one of the things we're going to be sharing on this series are the many different aspects of that and the information that's out there, but many people may not be aware. We've talked about the physical sizes of the countries. They're both, I want to say, continental in the fact of size. They each delve on different languages, all right, and different cultural aspects. But as we say, and you say that in your masterclass, business is business. And business opportunities from business persons is to find the way to take advantage of those opportunities. So I think that's our start. And we'll talk about the size of the business opportunities. What does India and Brazil represent in the world in terms of GDP? And what I've seen, what I found in Bing, ChatGPT, and other references, we're very similar. But to that point, we are both countries that are service-oriented. So we see from India, almost 58% of the GDP is from service, and in Brazil, 59% from service. Where we think of industry, where we think of agriculture as being the strong points, they are equally strong, but not as strong as service. So we are service-oriented countries, and there are service-oriented opportunities. And why is that important because service opportunities can be on the web, they can be on the internet. We don't have to build a factory. We don't have to invest in brick and mortar to have access. We don't have to plant corn or soybeans. So business startups, business opportunities in a service-oriented economy are very quick to reap benefits. Do you agree with me?
Right. If we look at the opportunities, we both have large domestic markets, growing middle class. We all have strategic geographical locations, and then we have got abundant natural resources, entrepreneurial ecosystems. In India, the government has laid a lot of focus on the startup India. And India, we got lots and lots of small businesses, MSMEs, medium and small scale enterprises. Then in terms of the skilled workforce, that's almost the same. And even in the scientific and technological capabilities, India is also moving towards a great amount of digitalization, and that is also happening at a very rapid pace. Earlier, even I was not very what we call conversant with using all the things, even for paying money online, but now I do use this. Not only one, but certain amount of wallets at the same time. So a lot of things are happening in that front, and I'm sure in terms of different aspects of either it's in terms of in terms of solar energy, in terms of pharmaceuticals, in terms of services, and your economy is very much dependent or say it uses a lot of tourism and trade, and in our case we are much more into information and communication technology. So there is a lot to exchange, lot to learn. India is also trying to find its way into tourism. Just a couple of days back, Indigo has given a huge amount of big order to Airbus industry. So for that, for many aircraft. So that shows that that whole travel is going to change too much. A lot of number of airports are coming up in India. And I'm sure this is going to bring a lot of tourism into the country. So we are very focused on this area, and that is where we can learn from Brazil a bit, how exactly you people are utilizing this opportunity. And I'm sure there is a lot of exchange going on in certain areas, where we are doing, especially, India is exporting a lot of pharmaceuticals in terms of plastics, motor vehicles. Right. We can have a lot of potential for growth, and then packaging, plastics, chemicals, ceramics, all those areas are there as big business opportunities between the two nations.
Well, and that's true. And here from the Brazilian side, this is all happening. There are major investments by Indian companies in Brazil. Trade between India and Brazil has always been strong. And that's to the points that you mentioned. Textiles, historically, very important and still are very important. The petrochemical side, very important, all right, as raw materials. But when we get to these as the B2B type companies, the consumer, the ordinary person on the street, he doesn't see that. He doesn't necessarily see he may see where the textile's coming if he's bought a shirt or a dress, but he may not see where that factory came from. He may not see where the raw materials in the petrochemical side have come. And he may not know where the pharmaceuticals are coming from. He may not see that and may not identify that as being from India. All right? But it's there, it's here, and it's growing. So it's the large companies, and generally they are B2B, that are carrying on this commerce, where the common person isn't aware of that. I'm not saying that's good or bad, that's just the way it is. And what we need and what we are doing is just communicating that more to different levels of people. So why are the benefits? So historically here, saying the pharmaceutical industry, the chemicals coming from that was highlighted, I want to say unfortunately, during the pandemic, where Brazil literally was became more dependent on the raw materials coming from India. because there is a strong manufacturing base here for pharmaceuticals in Brazil. But many of the products and sub-products come from India. The packaging equipment that you mentioned, there is not a pharmaceutical product that you buy here that's not packaged one way. And that's all high technology of how transforming raw materials into a pill or syrup or a injectable or whatever, and then packaging that in the right way and getting that to the public. So that logistic frame involves many other companies and services. And that's all happening. It's not something that's going to happen. No, that's where our partnership in business historically has come. What we are reaching for, and we're talking about the service industry, same thing. There are services being offered. We're talking about the fintechs, right? Talking about access. We may not know where that's coming from. We may not know where the code is being developed. But we do know it. I know, and you know that much of that's happening in India. So again, as we talk, big companies it's easier for them to find business relations. When we're talking about medium and small companies, it's more of a challenge. But it's there. If you look, you will find it. And across the whole line of what we're seeing. You mentioned the alternative energies. Sunshine is abundant in both places. Wind abundant in both places. So how is that transformed? Part of that is, let's say, hard tech. Part of that is soft tech. Part of that is services. So there are many avenues to be developed. And we see that happening. And I see that happening on our side. Indian, Brazilian business associations exist. And they exist to create the face-to-face contact with persons, with businesses. And that's something we have to highlight. As I mentioned to you recently, I took part in a CEO forum here in Brazil. And in just general discussion of people, people, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is what I'm doing. So I have another idea. I'm working with AJ. We've developed a chat as two podcasts. We've joined two podcasts to talk about business relations India and Brazil. What was, I would say, finding the sense of interesting, as soon as I mentioned India and Brazil, it sparked a reaction, positive reaction from those persons. Where it wouldn't be, hey, not only a good idea, but they would also mention either a business relation they have or had, or opportunities that they see. So that's sometimes below the surface. And what we need to do is what we're doing is talking about it and bringing that forward and putting it on top shelf.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you see how things are also changing. In 2021, Brazil was exporting, crude oil, soybean oil, and gold. Gold is very, very favorite in terms of Indians, because we use it in a lot of customs, especially wedding seasons. Mm-hmm. It's considered, we consider it as very sacred also. So we utilize it for many things. So and India exported, you see, refined petroleum. So we got crude, we sent refined petroleum, pesticides, and packaged medicines. And now things are changing. Now you see the new type of understanding that we are developing in terms of, we see the opportunities there is in the solar energy, in the renewable sector. That sector is opening up. In the tourism sector, we can see that. Even in pharmaceuticals, you see, you are the window for India because of this Mercosur trade agreement that can allow Indian companies to get into that part of the world. So huge opportunities. Even for Brazil, we have a lot of opportunities to understand how best we can make use of this renewable sector. We have both the same aspirations there. We both have wanting to expand solar globally. We want both the solar usage better for everybody, so that we are equally concerned about the climate change and all. So I'm sure these areas, from just crude oil or import or export, in terms of gold, beyond that we are moving towards the bigger gold called sunshine. So I see that's a huge thing. And, there are bottlenecks, some problems here and there, there can be. But as I spoke earlier, let's look at the opportunities about the large domestic markets, which we can serve, and, much more closer arrangement or agreement between our countries and yours. A lot of Indian companies are there operating in Brazil already, and I'm sure with the coming days, there will be much more cohesive cooperation between the two nations.
Well, I think to your point, also what we need to highlight, India and Brazil are complex societies. What do I mean by that? The makeup, speaking about India from a Brazilian point of view, when we look out to India, we understand the local cultural influences. And we also understand the challenges in terms of language. That English may be a business platform, but within the country, within India, you have several languages. So for a Brazilian wanting to do business with or in India, and I will say the same thing in reverse, for an Indian wanting to do business in Brazil, we need to understand the local cultures. And to do that, we need to partner with somebody who knows that. For a Brazilian to go to India and try to do it by him or herself, that's a challenge. So finding appropriate business opportunities, I would say, is the first step in any time and any type of realization of opportunities. Find the right people. Find people who can help you understand. And in India, as in Brazil, you have very large and important regionalities and local situations that need to be. India is not one thing, and Brazil is not one thing. So where you want to try, where you should start trying to find your way, it's important to do that with somebody who knows the local environment. And you realize that. And I see that here. So there's many companies coming to Brazil. Look at Brazil's one thing. Brazil has an opportunity different in that it has one language. It's Portuguese. All right? So you need to find and communicate in Brazil in Portuguese. In India, you need to find and communicate in several different languages. So that's just more complex. But to get across what you can as a manufacturing company, as a service company, what you are offering needs to be communicated appropriately, Brazil and India. And that's a challenge on the Brazilian business side of understanding the cultural influences in India. So how to do that? And who do I need to look for help in doing that? Multinational companies, the large companies that we know that share this already, they've done that. They've created their structure. They're in India. They're here in Brazil. They're growing. But for the rest of us common people, we have found ourselves, you and I, on an internet platform. So it's not impossible. We can find persons, knowledgeable persons, who can help in a very, I'm going to say, simple way. It was not complex in the way we started our relationship. So that's the same truth for most other people. It's just taking that, let's call it a simple step. It's the first step of creating relationships, and it's through personal relationships that business will grow.
Right. And you see, where you have the will to do business or the will to communicate, then language or anything will not be a barrier. Like in Brazil, if I understand, the main language is Portuguese.
Right.
And very few people, maybe 4 to 5% people speak English, if I'm correct.
That's true.
And you see, you are well settled there for so many years.
I speak Portuguese.
And you do. Yes, you do speak Portuguese. But what I mean to say is that even in India, we have English. A lot of people understand, and then there are a lot of regional languages. A lot of people speak in Hindi, but the communication has never been a problem if I go to any part of my country. And we understand. In the same way, it is a lot of people who come to India and as tourists.
Right.
they communicate with people who do not know English. They go to rural areas and somehow they are able to communicate. But now the whole world is changing. You see, there are a lot of gadgets. Immediately you speak in one language, it will translate to another language, and that's so that I don't think in the coming days with more and more understanding and, just all you need is to understand each other better, have that clarity of thought, have that clarity to do the right sort of business together. And once you come to that, there are people who are there to facilitate or cross the language barrier. There is a bridge for that. I'm sure.
And we see that, AJ. You interviewed hundreds of persons as masters in your master class. So you are, I don't want to say you're tired of it, but it's a challenge. You talk to experts every day, and they're everywhere in the world, all right? And they're successful. On my podcast, I speak to successful people. What is the key element that both of us have found, all right? How do you reach success? The first step in reaching success is taking that first step. If we look at all the challenges of not taking the first step, we never do it. So when I came to Brazil, I didn't speak Portuguese. So how did you communicate? Mimicry with my fingers, with anything. But I found a way. And as you mentioned, students go to India and they will find their way to communicate. And that's everywhere in the world. If you have the ambition to want to learn, you take that step and you do it. If we're talking about India or Brazil or Germany, France, Chinese, whatever. Take that step and go. And those business-oriented type persons who accept challenge, all right, and understand that it's not easy. If it were easy, everybody would be in business and everybody would be successful, right? But that's not the case. You have to have it. You have to have a business mindset. And that's taking the first step. Not on saying, well, if I go to India, I won't be able to speak. I'll go to India and you'll communicate. Indians coming to Brazil, they communicate, they find a way. And Brazilians are also receptive in that side. They may not speak, but they're very receptive of persons coming. They understand that persons coming and wanting to find an opportunity, they will help those persons. As I was helped many, many years ago when I came. So I lived that, I felt that. So why have I been here? Why have I been successful? I took the first step. I never thought that step would be that big or that challenging. But what we learn every step of the way adds to our success. And we each see that every day. We go back and say, why have you become a successful business person or consultant or whatever? Everybody has the story to tell. And they've gone through these challenges. So the barriers are not in language. The barriers are not in culture. Our business success, the barriers here in our head. So the openness that I see, and back, I want to use you as a reference. Your openness to accept, to expand, to promote is part of business success, not only for yourself, but for others. And that's what we try to do here. I think the Brazilians too have that in their sense. They want to help others succeed. It's good for them, it's good for their country, it's good for everybody. So those are the steps. So business persons listening, take the step. The opportunities there, you're talking, more than 1 billion people in India, if you're talking a consumer market. We have more than 200 million people here in Brazil. So they're large markets.
Absolutely. And India is a big expanding market with more than, 1.4, almost 4 billion people this side. So any company which is coming into Brazil gets a very ready-made market, waiting market for them. And especially, in so many sectors, we have both so much of opportunities for collaboration and to add value to each other. And I guess, like we have collaborated for podcasting, like India and Brazil both are making their strides in podcasting. Last time we focused on that. I'm sure a lot of strides and further development or cooperation, collaborations will happen in business as well as. And that's the whole idea of this show, is to, focus and refocus and reiteration of the same issues and expanding the potential between the two countries, especially in the business. And when you do business, you also understand each other much, much closely. That's the good part of knowing people and talking to people and even doing business with them. So I guess any closing words from you, Tom, and then we can wrap this up.
No, what I would say just is that the opportunities are there. You have to take them. If we look at the other parts of the world, North America, Europe, I don't want to say they've happened, but they're more mature markets. They're more challenging markets in the sense of competition. So both India and Brazil share a neutral playing field. So you can come here and play your business game. You will be welcomed. And the success factor could be higher, irregardless of the challenges. It's more expensive, and we know that. It's more expensive to try to develop a new company in Europe, in Asia, in the United States, than probably it will be in Brazil or India. So that startup, not only the financial side, the energy needed could and probably will be less. And so the success factor will probably be higher, and we've seen that. So the challenges are there, but the opportunities are as well. Take the first step.
Absolutely. Take the first step. Take the first towards building a big business for yourself in either of these countries, and take the big first step towards adding value to a larger group of people in this small planet of ours. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you, AJ, and thanks for listening. You can find more about Khudania Ajay on LinkedIn and YouTube, and it's youtube.com KAJ Masterclass. Khudania is Khudania, and the last name is Ajay. Thanks to our listeners and our sponsor, Focus MI Market Intelligence. Focus MI specializes in market research for the Brazilian agricultural market. More about them on their site, www.focusmi.com. Talk to Tom, talk to the world. Goodbye, and thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to Tom Reaoch on Talk to Brazil, the business connector to Brazil.